Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with the British hold the initiative in Egypt. We're now on to a heavy British bomber prepares to scourge the Reich. July 1942. Firebombs for German cities. During July, the RAF kept up its attack on centers of German war production whenever weather permitted. Bremen, Wilhelmshaven, Danzig, Finnsburg, Dusseldorf, Dusselburg, Lübeck, Wegesach, and Hamburg were visited, some of them more than once, and greater material damage was done. On these raids, perhaps the most outstanding were the daylight raid on Danzig on the 11th and the night raid on Hamburg on the 26th. The former involved a flight of 1,750 miles, the longest daylight operational flight yet attempted. In the Hamburg raid, 175,000 incendiary bombs were rained on the city within 50 minutes, far surpassing the number dropped on London in the fire raid of December 29th, 1940. Some idea of the weight of the British offensive may be gathered from the fact that during June and July 1942, 13,000 tons of bombs were dropped on Germany as against 8,500 tons in the same months of 1941 and 3,500 in June and July of 1940. The Sterling bomber, seen above, is loaded with incendiary bombs. Yeah, obviously this is the German reprisals. So they bombed London and many of the English cities very heavily. And so, in turn, the English are going to bomb them very hard because you do this to us, we'll do it back to you. An eye for an eye, as they would say. Germans recapture Rostov-on-the-Don. July 27th to 31st, 1942. Fall of Rostov. After the evacuation of Vorislavgrad, the German attack on Rostov was broadened by pressure both from Taganrog and Milerovo. On July 25th, the enemy thrusts down the railways from Volishavgrad and Milerovo had linked up, and fighting on the whole lower Don front became intense. Two bridges were thrown across the river at Tismalensk. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how that is pronounced. And despite desperate Russian resistance, the railway joining Stalingrad with the Black Sea and the Caucasus was threatened. The superiority of the enemy in arms and numbers enabled him to consolidate his bridgehead and also close in on Rostov. After carrying out thorough demolitions, the great port was evacuated by the Russians on the 27th. On the same day, another enemy threat to the Black Sea coast and the oil of Maikop took shape in a swift German drive southeastwards to Bataisk. The picture show left German infantry in Rostov crawling forward with the support of their field guns. And we can see them here. You can see the field gun right here. They're crawling up on the field gun lays covering fire. And then right, just making sure, at top right here, burnout streetcars. You can see them all over. Well, actually right here. But burnout streetcars, which had been used as barricades by the Soviets during the desperate street fighting which raged in the town and suburbs before the final evacuation. So these are what the Soviets had used for cover, which makes sense. It's decent cover. It's not the best, but it's not the worst cover either. It'll give them the cover that they're looking for from the small arms fire. Now, larger fire from like a tank or even the field guns, not so much. And then the bottom right here, It shows German infantry surrendering to the crew of a Soviet tank. Yeah, I mean, you can tell they're like, we do not want to go up against this thing. This thing will obliterate us. German open drive for the Caucasus oil fields. August 1st to 7th, 1942. We'll just look at this. Russian oil fields threatened. Yeah. Anyway, after the German capture of Rostov and Bataisk, fierce and prolonged fighting took place over Salsk, my bad, and at Kushev. Again, the Soviet forces were driven gradually back, and on August 6th, von Kleist's tanks, after crossing the Kuban River, entered Tikhorovsk. The Germans were now advancing on Maikop across the rich Kuban steppes, and on the 8th, they broke through towards Armavir and Krasnodar, thereby developing a dangerous pincer threat to Maikop. The pictures show left above Red Army men attacking an enemy outpost in an attempt to stem the advance. And below, German troops occupying a railway station that had been scorched by the retreating Soviets. So, in both these pictures, we can see, Red Army. This outpost is getting attacked from outside. They're just like, okay, rush up. Any enemies that are in there, we can take them out. And here, we see the burnt out railway station. So that the idea would be that the Germans cannot use it. Then right above, German advancing along a road choked with refugees. Yeah, this happened quite a bit on both sides, actually. The Germans used this pretty effectively in France, which they had talked about in the previous book at the beginning of the war. And what they did is they kind of had a bunch of refugees basically just go towards them, as they would anyway. And the idea was that it would slow down the Allies to getting to the front. So the same idea could be being used here by the Soviets. Have the refugees just get in their way, slow them down, and then we can get in more defensible positions. And then below, it's just Germans attacking a building, which we can see here. And them with their... is it an MG, right? MG 42? That doesn't sound quite right. U.S. Marines land in the Solomons, August 7th, 1942. In the early hours of August 7th, warships and aircraft of the U.S. Pacific Fleet opened up a heavy bombardment on the Japanese positions in the Tulagi area of the Solomons, and U.S. Marines went ashore in landing barges. By nightfall, they had gained strong positions on Guadalcanal, Tulagi, and Florida, after having overcome fierce resistance. And on the following day, they extended the occupied area of Guadalcanal and captured a vital aerodrome. On Tulagi, almost all resistance had been overrun, and huge quantities of munitions and supplies had been captured. By noon on the 10th, the Marines were in the firm control of Guadalcanal, Tulagi, Gavatu, Tanamboga, Macombo, and Florida, and were engaged in mopping up enemy forces which had been defeated on the beachheads and had retreated to the interior. During these operations, long-range U.S. bombers carried out extensive reconnaissance. Besides bombing enemy ships and air bases in New Britain, New Ireland, and in the Solomon areas. The pictures show unloading men and supplies on the island. So here we see the men being unloaded. This is the, I would assume this is men and supplies, because the trucks are here. That, I guess that would be the idea that they would be trying to give. And then here we see even more men and supplies. Yep, and we're starting, obviously, the island hopping, and it'll be lots of fighting on these islands, but eventually the Allies will basically get all the way up to anything that just isn't mainland Japan. They'll be almost right there. So, but that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I could improve on. I really appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.